we are going to talk about why managed databases, especially for developers. So other cloud people in the house, we're not trying to compare and contrast anything. The idea is to kind of talk about the advantages and also what to look out for when you are thinking of using managed databases. And then we will show you what are the offerings of MySQL, Postgres, Redis options that we have from DigitalOcean. And I have a demo to tell you what are the different features, capabilities, and we will quickly try to deploy a WordPress, pretty popular content management system using the managed database. I'm Sangram. I have been working quite a bit with the cloud for some time now. And I've been doing gig working for more than 6 years. It has been very interesting for me. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of startups and corporates and also work in various roles. So that's something that I love. Of course, love working with startups, and I help them adopt emerging technologies like cloud and DevOps. You can feel free to check me out on LinkedIn if you have anything else to know about me. That's the session for today. We'll basically try to see how managed databases provide you an automated, abstracted solution that's also simple at the same time. So you would probably relate to what I'm going to show you next. And it also matters to the developers, because a lot of the times what we've seen in the past is we developers spend a lot of time building the infrastructure that will eventually run the application that you are building or you're planning to deploy. So what happens is you end up spending a lot of time, money, and a lot of other of your resources. Could be capital expenditure in some cases, going back to the old days. You're spending more doing something that is not your core, right? You have an idea, you want to build an application, but that's not where you're focusing, that's not where you're spending your time. You're spending your time somewhere else. Now, let's say you would argue that, oh, today we have cloud, we have VMs that come up in a minute. I can write a Terraform or an Ansible script, and I can build a database cluster in a few minutes. Sure, I agree, but you have to do the writing. You have to write the automation script. You still have to spend some amount of time building that automation framework or the automation script, at least, that can do the entire thing for you. And believe me, with the way we are changing things in cloud, the automation script also changes. It changes overnight. So you constantly have a bit of work for you that is not actually your core. That is not something that you actually want to do, but you have to do it. And a lot of startups or people who are just starting up would resonate with me when I say that the other important factor that affects all of this is cost. Not every startup gets funded. You are paying money from your own pocket, and it matters a lot even if there is a pricing difference of $2 or $3 at the end of the day. So let's assume I'm on cloud, and let's take DigitalOcean, and we will see how self-managed databases versus managed databases compare and contrast. So I have a bit of animation to kind of keep things interesting. So you can take a droplet, but you have to go through various stages of prerequisites, install the database, configure the database, right? Take care of security, very, very essential, right? Worry about backups. You don't want to lose the data that you are generating. And then the moment you say, okay, a single database machine is not enough for me, I want a cluster, you kind of repeat the whole process again. You take another droplet, you go through the same stages again, and then ongoing maintenance, monitoring. So this is database administration that sometimes we don't want to do, that sometimes we don't have the time for, sometimes we don't have the money to spend for, right? So this is exactly what we are trying to take away from you by offering you a managed database solution. In general, I'm saying. We have a lot of vendors out there who do this kind of managed database solution for you. Of course, we'll talk about DigitalOcean's managed database. But essentially, this is what you don't want to do, even though you have cloud, you have automation and all of that, right? And then, yeah, if you want to improve performance and all of that, you create read-only databases and whatnot. So what we give you is something very simple as this. You say what engine you want, you say what size you want, and we do all of the heavy lifting underground work for you. And at the end of the day, we give you only a method to connect to the database. That's about it. We don't give you access to your to the servers. We don't give you access to the VMs. We only give you a DNS or a connection string, as we call it. And we say, here you go, database is up, go ahead and use it with your application. So you continue focusing on your application that you're working on the application that you're trying to build. Anytime you want a database, make one API call and the database is ready. You want more databases, you want to create a highly available setup, sure. You want read-only copies, sure. All you have to do is keep sending the API calls, or use a command line tool, or go to the web UI and do it, right? So the idea here is we want to make it absolutely something similar to a near zero administration for you. We will take care of all the administration tasks. And the way we normally achieve this kind of administration is we automate the underlying processes of maintenance, patching, backup creation, right? Replication. Database admins would agree with me that keeping an eye that your replication is happening and you're able to revert back to it, it's a key part of the database setup. And that is also something that you don't have to worry about. You don't have to focus on. We will do the replication. We will ensure replication happens. If there is any problem with the replication, we have our own system taking care of it. You just are concerned about, is my database available? Can I reach my database? Can I write data to it? Can I create a schema? All of that, right? So higher degree of abstraction with managed databases, near zero control. You don't have control over the VMs. You cannot SSH to the VMs. You cannot change my.cnf file. We let you change a few things from our own APIs or web UI and all of that. But this is something that you should be willing to trade off. But if you need customization, you need a lot of tailoring in your databases, you of course have the self-managed option of going for it. A bit expensive. I don't deny that. But trust me, when you take into amount of time, if you take into account the amount of time that you'll be spending, time is equal to money. So we're good there. For example, DO droplet could start from $5, whereas a DO managed database starts from $15. But trust me, that $10 extra is worth the amount of work that we are doing for you so that you can focus on your application development. Still relatively cheaper compared to other solutions out there. You can scale as you go in a managed database. All you have to do is go make an API call again, or go to the web UI, just select from the drop-down the newer configuration that you want, click on apply, go get your cup of coffee, we're done. We will upgrade the whole setup for you. Some of the things that you would probably be doing a lot of more in the self-managed databases is a lot of administration, but at the same time you have more control. You can tailor it to your needs, and you have to figure out the sizing. It so happens, we've seen from our experience, is that either you are overutilized or you are underutilized. Getting to know the right size is always a bit difficult because you never know whether you are going to get a grand exit or you're going to get the exit, right? So yeah, I mean, these are some differences between managed databases and self-managed databases. Don't forget that you still have certain things that you have to keep and watch out for. And these are things like vendor lock-in, feature set availability. This is something that I get asked a lot, right? I want this kind of feature, which managed database gives me that particular option. So do your due diligence or research, whatever it is. Look at SLAs. Now, again, I said this session is for developers, so I won't talk a lot about it. But yes, if you have an SLA in mind, please make sure you get the SLA that you're looking for. Security. All managed databases, because you don't have access on the underlying server or on the underlying VM, we give you certain security controls. It is your responsibility to implement those security controls. So it's a shared responsibility model. But some vendors might give you more options. Some vendors might give you less options. Again, not so obvious point. So please make sure you do your check on that as well. Physical location of data, compliance, and the kind of client tools they support. These are some other things that you should be looking at. Developers especially should focus on the client tools part of it. if you have a specific tool that you are using to interact with the databases, please make sure the POC and all is done and you've tested it out well, right? Compliance and physical location goes without saying. If you have, let's say, a product that's targeted towards medical or something that requires HIPAA compliance or PCI DSS, a lot of the payment gateway companies are coming up, right? So they would have certain compliance requirements. So these are some not so obvious things, and these are the differences between a managed and a self-managed databases. Provided everything falls in place and you decide to go ahead with a managed database, we will see what are the offerings of DigitalOcean around that, and specifically look at the capabilities of DigitalOcean's MySQL managed database. Right, so we kind of covered a lot of this. I don't have to talk about support. We had a session in the morning talking about the huge community support that we have around DigitalOcean's products. So you definitely do get that out of us. We will see how managed databases for DigitalOcean provides us all of this. I have a couple of decks on that along with pictures to kind of prove that we actually have it and we are not just writing stuff. We have 3 engines that we support currently: Postgres, MySQL, and Redis, which you can leverage for improving performance of your applications. These are 3 things that I would like to focus on, right? Simple pricing. Like I said, it matters a lot. Not every startup is heavily funded. Not every developer who is building or working on an application has a lot of funds behind him or her. And sometimes the money that you're paying for the initial infrastructure to run your applications, to test your applications, matters a lot. And a simple pricing that tells you what is the exact amount of money you will pay at the end of the month is important. So if we say we'll charge you $5 for the droplet, that's what we charge, plus taxes. If we say we're going to charge you $15 for the databases, that's what we charge. There's no hidden cost. And until January 1st, 2020, we are not even charging you for the bandwidth, the egress bandwidth. Post that, there'll be some charges. Just letting you know if you're using DO. Provisioning simplicity, 3 clicks and your database is ready. You have to select the engine, your region, right? And the fact whether you want one or 2, the high availability options. We'll talk about that. And of course, the community support that we've been talking about. We have a lot of articles, we have a lot of tutorials, how to set up managed databases with WordPress, how to use the different tools that are available, how to, like we discussed, right? We don't have tutorials that talk about only from a DigitalOcean perspective. We have instructions, we have step-by-step methods with screenshots that tell you how to do a certain, or how to deploy a certain stack. If you look at the bigger picture, right? You can always take that and do it in any other vendor out there. So MySQL features: multiple regions, data centers, highly available configurations are available. You can decide the number of nodes in your cluster. We give you scalable options. The performance is really good. These are all SSD based, so your databases are really great in terms of reads, writes, and all of that. The entire administration, right from provisioning to backups to patch management and doing any kind of updates, is fully automated. You don't have to do anything from your side. Normally, we don't as well. It's everything automated in the backend. We provide you a couple of security options. You have absolute control over who gets access to the database. We'll see that. We give you certain monitoring statistics, which I will also show you. We give you certain cluster level metrics, and we give you certain database level metrics. And like I said, pricing is simple. What are the configuration options? So we give you an option to start with a single primary node, as we call it, and then provision up to 2 extra standby nodes. This is your highly available configuration in case you want more than 1 nodes, so that if one node is down, you still have the other one taking over as being the master. Apart from this, you can create as many as 5 read-only nodes. This is to improve your read performance. So if you have an application, for example, where you are doing a lot of reads, You can create a read-only node out of your master and have all the reads redirected to the read-only node. So that way your master is focused more on doing a lot of writes and a lot of the reads are happening from the read-only nodes. A point to remember here is that the read-only nodes are not considered to be a part of your cluster. So any changes you do to the cluster does not affect the read-only nodes. You'll have to kind of create or delete them separately. They are not considered as part of the same cluster. So it's not like when you create a cluster of primary and one standby and one read-only, your cluster is not 3 nodes, it's 2 nodes. Your read-only is always considered as a separate server. We provide you automatic failover even if you have a single primary node. There will be a bit of downtime, but we bring it up. So the failover is completely automated, and we give it to you even if you have a single primary node, even if you have not provisioned a standby node. Data handling is automatically done. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't even have to go to your application and change the DNS or the IP address. We give you a single DNS. We do all the changes of IP address in the backend for you. Scale. You can increase the node plan anytime you want. You can add standby nodes. You can add read-only nodes. So we let you do all these kinds of scaling from the UI or by using an API call. Security. There are a few things here, right? One is, by default, when you have a managed database provisioned, we are allowing all traffic, but you don't want that. So what we recommend is that you add something called as a trusted resource. So you can decide from a trusted resource which is already a DigitalOcean product, like a droplet, or you can add your IP address of the machine that is going to access the database. The moment you add at least one trusted resource, all other traffic incoming is blocked. But if you don't add any trusted resource, you kind of have it open to the public. So please make sure you do that, but that's one feature that we have where you can ensure that only trusted resources are connecting to your database. We encrypt your data at rest and in transit. Of course, in transit, it's your responsibility to implement SSL, but we give you the certificate which you can download after provisioning the database and make sure your application uses that to send data over internet using SSL. We do have support for private network as well, but in the same DC. So if your droplet and your database is in Bangalore DC, they can use the private network where you are not exposing your database to the public. We have VPC coming in, so that should give us more control, hopefully. Not sure if VPC can actually leverage managed databases yet, but I'm pretty sure that it's something that they would be considering. Apart from this, there is another important point. We do not expose your database using the standard ports. Every time you provision a managed database, you get a random 5-number port. You have to ensure that you're provisioning or you're mentioning that port number in your application. So if you just leave it on 3306, it won't work. You won't be able to connect to it. So that security is there by default. We give you free daily backups up to 7 days. No charge for backups at all. You can use this to do point-in-time recovery as well if you want. The only thing to remember is that every time you do a restore, whether it is for point-in-time recovery or we have something called as a forking, as in creating a copy of your database, it's all a new database every time. You cannot restore or point-in-time restore on the same database. It's like doing a fork of your GitHub repository. We take care of the maintenance. We auto-update all minor version releases. You decide the 4-hour window during which we can apply the update. Now, when we apply the update, we are not saying that your database will be down for 4 hours, but that's a window that you are allowing us to apply the changes on. All the patches and security updates and everything is done by us. We provide a few server metrics, and some of them are around operations throughput, connection status, disk usage, memory usage, what is the average load every 1 minute, every 5 minutes, and every 15 minutes, what is the average CPU usage. So these are, you can say, cluster or server level metrics. And then we also give you database level metrics, throughput and latency. You can always use something like MySQL Slap to do your own performance diagnostics or performance collection if you feel like. You'll get good numbers, don't worry. I have implemented for some of my database, some of my customers, and they've been pretty happy about the performance. We also let you see the logs and queries from the UI. Because it's a managed database and you don't have access to the underlying virtual machine, right, or the droplet, we give you a lot of these from the dashboard itself, right? So you can see your current query, what's running. You can see the last history of query statistics and all the recent logs. So whatever you would normally see, the point is not that you cannot do this. The point is you will have to spend a lot of time, you need a lot of infrastructure, and you need someone who has the skills to give you a solution like this. You can always do apt install MySQL and install MySQL, but that's not it. That's not how you would use a database. You will need backups. For backups, you need a place to store it. You need to do high availability. For that, you need another machine. So increasing the cost, more infrastructure. You have to ensure replication is happening, and you have to do replication from the MySQL level, right? So all of this is the difference that we are trying to point out. And we are saying that if you are a developer or if you're a startup, provided whatever conditions we spoke about earlier, they are not something that is a obstacle for you, and you have a very a simpler requirement initially at least, and whatever we offer as a feature set works for you, managed databases are something that you should definitely look at rather than trying to manage your own databases. We have big companies, really big companies, companies like Chrysler using managed databases. They may not be using DigitalOcean, but I'm telling you that even enterprises and big companies have some part of their workloads running on managed databases. Not every workload fits the bill. We agree on that, right? But we definitely would have certain workloads that would definitely fall under the managed database category, and you should look at offloading that kind of work to vendors like us. So you can access the managed database using APIs, UIs, client tools, right? MySQL client and all of that. Hopefully I don't run out of time. A few limits, 10 clusters per account or team. And DigitalOcean has a cloud firewall solution that currently does not work with the managed databases. For MySQL, we only support version 8. And if you're using version 8, there are a couple of things that you should remember. One of them is that the authentication mechanism, for example, which is caching SSH2 password, it's not supported by PHP. So if you're trying to use PHP with MySQL version 8, you have to use a native password method, which you will see as part of the demo. So a couple of more things, but please make sure you again do your due diligence and see what see if you might have challenges implementing version 8 of MySQL, right? Some more unsupported features: query statistics, connection pooling, cannot change from InnoDB to my ISAM, and things like that. Okay, so quickly, this is the interface, and you can start by clicking on Create Databases. You select your engine, select your node plan. This is the pricing that we have. And for the $15 pricing, we don't have a standby node option. So anything above that is where you can add a standby node up to 2. Start with this, select your data center. So I've created a database beforehand. Let's quickly check the different capabilities that I was talking about. Once your DB is provisioned, you'll get the connection details like this. You can choose between, if you're a developer, you'll need the connection strings. If you are someone who is trying to connect to the database directly from a command prompt, you will need credentials like this, right? So you can change this here. Under settings, you can change your cluster configuration after it is created, move to a bigger configuration. A point to remember, you cannot downgrade, okay? If you want to downgrade, you'll have to create a new one. Change your data center, add trusted sources, and this is your maintenance window. Of course, delete your database, right? Fork a database, restore from backup. This is where you get your point-in-time recovery option. Create a read-only node, right? Pretty simple in terms of the interface. Not a lot of things going on. Very easy to move around and make changes, or make configuration changes or revert back to a previous point in time and all of that. Insights will give you information about your database, right? And what you do is in the drop down, if you select on the instance, which is this, you get the server level metrics. Below that, you have your databases. When you click on a database, you get the database level metrics. Yeah. Users and databases. You can create a user and database from the UI itself. So let's quickly go ahead and create one. Don't create a user here if you are using PHP 7.24 and below. They have issues with that authentication that I was talking about. So I'll just create a DB here and then move to the command prompt. For the demonstration, I have also created a droplet. So this is a fresh Ubuntu 18.04 machine that I have. I have to install a couple of things and make some changes. So we'll install Apache and the usual stuff that is required to run WordPress. I will not install MySQL. I will, however, install the MySQL 8 client because we are running MySQL 8. We'll need the MySQL 8 client. It by default does not install when you do MySQL client on Ubuntu 18.04, so you'll have to add the repository. So to save time, I have the instructions here. I'll just quickly try and leverage that. We'll need the en mod. WordPress people? No, WordPress? Okay, few of you. And the 5 minutes, I know we are out of time. We'll keep coffee and tea for you. Okay, let me go ahead and install the MySQL that I was talking about. So this is installing the MySQL 8 client. Here you just need to click on OK. We just need the client for now. And then when you run apt install MySQL-client, it downloads the version 8 of it. Okay, we're good. Let's download WordPress. So the flag option gives you everything that you need. Just copy and so this is that custom port that I was talking about. I am not sure if it's visible. Right, so you have to give a -p and mention that port that we have given you. This is your way into the MySQL managed database 3306. If you forget to write the port, will not let you in. Any guesses why it's not working? Exactly, trusted sources. This is very important, which is why I've, when I do a demo, I deliberately kind of do that. It also tells me you're not sleeping. Now, because it's a DO resource, you can actually add it from the drop down. This. Let's try again. Okay. I have my Geotie database that I created earlier. Is it clear? Okay, that's fine. So the next important step is because we are using an older version of PHP, we'll have to create a user that is identified using a native. Again, sorry about that. Is that CLS? Okay, hopefully you can see it. So create a user identified with MySQL_native_password. That's what you need. If you don't create a user like this from the MySQL instance, if you create a user there, you will not have connectivity. Because by default, MySQL 8 uses the SSH2 password method, right? So this is an important step. So I'm creating a user. Let's change it to something else. I might still have that user. Right, and then of course I will grant permissions because we're good. So this is where you'll provide the information about your managed database. So everything is geotied, should be straightforward. The database host is again the DNS name that we've given you with that specific port. All right, so that's the host name, all right, with the 25060. If you got this, that means it was able to talk. Right, so that's using a managed database for or as a backend for your WordPress installation. Right, so you charged per node. Every additional node that you create, you're charged. The pricing for standby and read-only nodes are a little lower than the primary nodes. As of now, we are not charging you for outbound transfer, but we may charge you at 0.01 per GB. Don't go by that price, just a rough, but most likely that's going to be the price. That's post January 1st, 2020, which is not very far. Right, so that's all I have. Thank you. Feel free to drop me an email or check me out on LinkedIn or tweet me, whatever you feel comfortable with. Thank you so much.